I'm Alex Dykes, and today on thetruthaboutcars.com, we're taking a look at the 2015 Volkswagen e-Golf. This is the electric version of the MQB platform Golf. Unlike the regular gasoline Golf, the e-Golf has a slightly larger competitive set. This is going to compete with the likes of everything from a Fiat 500e all the way up to a BMW i3. For 2015, the e-Golf starts at $33,450 for the new limited trim, $35,450 for the SEL premium trim. Now at the moment, you cannot find the limited trim on Volkswagen's website. It was very recently announced. The SEL premium trim gives you these full LED headlamps we're taking a look at here, in addition to alloy wheels, leatherette seats, and a heat pump. The heat pump is a little bit more important in cold climates than you might think. The reason for that is a traditional vehicle heats the cabin with waste energy, waste heat generated by the gasoline engine. That's not going on in an EV like this. Even though the motor and the battery do generate heat while they're operating, they don't generate a whole lot of heat, and it's not enough to heat the cabin. That means if you don't get the heat pump, it actually uses an electric resistive heater. You can think of sort of a space heater in your own home to heat the cabin, and it's not as efficient as a heat pump. Although the Golf has grown over the years, this is still smaller than a Ford Focus hatchback. It really is noticeable on the outside. However, it's not so noticeable on the inside. We actually have very accommodating back seats. I found them more comfortable than the Ford Focus. As with most EVs, you'll find the motor jammed right here under the hood. It produces 115 horsepower and 199 pound-feet of torque. It's mated to a single-speed transaxle, sending power right here to the front wheels. Powering the engine is a 24.2 kilowatt-hour lithium-ion battery pack. Thanks to the design of this particular platform, the battery sits between the axles and right under the vehicle, so it doesn't take up any interior space like you see in the Fiat 500e. That 24.2 kilowatt hours is good for a range of about 83 miles according to the EPA. Depending on how you drive it, you could get up to 115 miles according to Volkswagen, but it really depends on your driving style, the terrain, and the weather. Charging the battery is an onboard 7.2 kilowatt hour charger. The key thing to note is that the vehicle will only charge as fast as your EVSE can charge up to the point of the internal charger's rating, 7.2 kilowatts in this particular example. So if you bought a first generation Nissan Leaf and you bought a 3.3 kilowatt home charger, this will only charge at 3.3 kilowatts. If you decided to future-proof yourself when you bought that Nissan Leaf and you put in a 10 kilowatt EVSE, then this will charge at 7.2 kilowatts. Volkswagen is a company that prefers design evolution to design revolution. That's definitely going on in this cabin. This is not a sharp departure from the previous generation Golf. In fact, it looks more like a refinement of that same interior design. As far as accommodations go, the front seats are very comfortable. We get a tilt telescopic steering column with a decent range of motion, manual adjustable lumbar support, both the driver and the front passenger. Most of the directions of motion on this seat are manual except for the recline, which is powered. The back seats came as a bit of a surprise. I didn't expect as much room as you actually get back here. I'm 6 feet tall. I have about 1.5 inches of headroom sitting very upright in this back seat. About 1 inch of legroom left sitting right here behind myself. As you'd expect from a hatchback like this, we do get a surprising amount of rear cargo room back here. However, it is a little bit less practical than you'll find in the Kia Soul. If we take these roller bags, you can fit a 24-inch roller bag in this position, but you cannot do the same for a 26-inch roller bag and have the rear hatchback close. As with most EVs, once that load floor is out, you will not find a spare tire back there, but you will find that it gives you enough room to put a 24-inch roller bag in this vertical position and still close the hatch. Also more evolution than revolution is this brand new head unit that we find in the 2015 Golf. It uses all new software and is much snappier than the last generation version we saw in the Golf. We have improved voice commands for a variety of different system functions, but it still will not voice command your media library on your connected smartphone like you come to expect from Uconnect or My Ford Touch. We also get improved navigation, but again, this is not quite as good as you'll find in some of the competition. We do have traffic shown right there on the screen, as well as XM traffic information by text. If we click on the car option, this is really just an over-glorified trip computer. We don't get any pretty graphics showing you where the power is going from or going to. We also, however, don't get any information about charging time. So this doesn't tell you, like many of the competitors, how long it will take to charge the car if you plugged it into power source A or power source B. It will give you a time to completion on the multi-information display in the instrument cluster when you plug the vehicle in, but it won't tell you that in advance. Over here on menu is where you can change various vehicle settings. The e-Golf gets a slightly tweaked instrument cluster. On the left-hand side, you can see we have a charge and power gauge. Because we're plugged in, it'll only give us off. That's what the EPC really means right there. Charge gauge right over here on this side, and then a power used gauge from 0 to 100% on that side. This tells you how much power is available from the battery. So if the battery was too cold or too hot or too empty, it would be down here in the red zone. If the car was on and not plugged in, it would be right over here on the max side. You can see right here we get the only charging status indicator that we have in the vehicle is this charging time right here in the multi-information display. In addition to that, the green light blinks right next to the charge cable, but doesn't really tell you how long it will take. You can of course use the Volkswagen CarNet app to also monitor your charging, but if you don't have a smartphone or you don't want to use that app, then it is a little bit difficult to monitor your charge. If you recall our review of the BMW i3, I didn't really care for its one-pedal concept. That concept is basically where BMW has combined functions of the brake and accelerator pedal into one pedal. If you have your foot on the accelerator pedal and you let off, it's going to enter maximum regeneration mode, and it really will stop the car all the way to a complete stop. It'll also put on the brake lights for you. I found it very difficult to drive smoothly in a wide variety of different driving situations. That's not going on in this vehicle. Not only do we have a very traditional shifter here, but we also have the ability to adjust the regeneration braking. So if we pull the shifter all the way back to drive mode, which I can't do because we're plugged in right now, it'll sit here and drive and the D light will be lit. If I click it once back, it'll actually enter maximum regeneration mode, where it is a little bit similar to that BMW i3. Really feels like you're putting the brakes on, and it will attempt maximum regeneration. But if I click it once more and I put it back into drive mode and then I toggle side to side, again plus and minus, you can actually alter the way that regeneration mode behaves. All the way over to the right will actually give you no regeneration, so it will just glide right on. We then have 3 different levels of regeneration that can be activated by clicking the shifter to the left. The biggest thing you notice about the e-Golf driving it out on the road is how much like a regular Golf this drives. And I know that sounds a little bit funny, but many of the EV versions of regular gasoline cars don't feel like their gasoline counterpart. They don't necessarily ride as well, they certainly don't handle as well, and they don't accelerate as well either. But I'm talking about the steering feel and the way the suspension handles around the corners. They just feel heavy and lethargic and different. And that's not going on in the e-Golf. Obviously, we don't have the same kind of acceleration numbers that we get out of the regular gasoline Golf. I hit 0 to 60 in about 10 seconds, which is about as fast as the first generation Prius or so. Handling obviously suffers with these 205 with low rolling resistance tires on every corner, but it's not as bad as you might think. This is definitely one of the most fun EVs that's available out on the market right now. BMW's i3 does give you a solid rear-wheel drive dynamic, which is very entertaining in an EV, and this is a front-wheel drive vehicle. But because of where the batteries are located in the e-Golf, we actually get a little bit less plowing in the corners than you get in the traditional gasoline Golf because we have a slightly better weight balance. We also have a center of gravity that's very low, so even though these tires really start complaining and howling in the corners, it does grip better than you might think possible. A lot of that has to do with the low curb weight in the Golf. I was really surprised when I looked up the curb weight and found out this thing only weighs 3,100 pounds. This is less than 300 pounds heavier than BMW's aluminum and carbon composite i3. That's really saying something. This is about 600 to 700 pounds lighter than many of its EV competitors. Of course, this isn't as much fun out on your favorite winding mountain roads as one of the turbocharged Golfs would be, but it's still fairly good for an EV. Range has been excellent in this vehicle. I've easily been getting about 75 miles without really worrying about the battery charge. I suspect it could go the 80 to 90 miles that Volkswagen is telling you, especially if you live in a flat area, but I don't really want to risk that myself. The transition between regen braking and friction braking is very smooth in the e-Golf. This is definitely one of the best out on the market right now. Thanks to the light curb weight and relatively narrow tires, fuel economy has been fairly good as well. I've been averaging 4.2 miles per kilowatt hour in a cycle of very mixed driving, and that is among the best in this segment. It actually is very close to the BMW i3, which again is one of the lighter and more efficient vehicles in this segment. The e-Golf is without a doubt one of the most fun EVs to drive at the moment. BMW's i3 has a solid rear-wheel drive dynamic, but it doesn't necessarily road hold as well as this vehicle, largely because of the tire size. They have 155 tires up front, 175 tires out back. This one has 205 tires all the way around, even though it is a front-wheel drive vehicle. This is without a doubt more fun to drive than a Leaf or a Kia Soul EV. However, it's not quite as much fun as a Ford Focus electric. If you want an electric Volkswagen, I can highly recommend the e-Golf. If you want a fun to drive electric vehicle, I can highly recommend the e-Golf. If you want a good value, the Golf starts to slip just a little bit because the Ford Focus Electric has significant cash on the hood. It doesn't go quite as far on a charge as this vehicle, but it may be significantly less expensive. If, however, you're after the most practical, or in my opinion, the best overall vehicle in this particular EV segment, it really would be the Kia Soul EV. It's about the same price as this vehicle, but we get real leather on the inside, some additional cargo practicality in the back. We also get a much improved infotainment and navigation system and cooled seats. The cooled seats are more important than you might think because in general it uses less energy to heat or cool the seats or the steering wheel than to heat or cool the air in the car. In addition to that, Kia's Soul gives you a larger battery pack. It's 27 kilowatt hours. That's a significant bump over this particular battery pack, and it gives you a longer EV range even though it is a little bit less efficient. Still, number 2 in this segment is a very good place to be, so my top pick in the EV segment at this moment would be that Kia Soul EV. This comes in at number 2, and I think I would probably put the Ford Focus Electric at number 3. Thanks for checking this vehicle out. Again, I'm Alex Dykes, and this has been the 2015 Volkswagen e-Golf. If you want to know more about the regular gasoline Golf, and that would be Golf without the E, then you can check that out coming up in a few weeks. In the meantime, go ahead and click that subscribe button at the top of your screen, and be sure to check out thetruthaboutcars.com for news, reviews, and more.